My mommy and daddy are having a fight, and he made some red marks on the neck.
Where did he make the red marks on with their neck?
On the right side. Very dark. Oh. Could you get to the police, please?
Hi, I'm Casey Gwynn, the president of Alliance for Hope International and the co-founder of the Training Institute on Strangulation Prevention. Over the last 10 years, we've been diving deeper and deeper into understanding what's going on when you hear a woman say, "He choked me," in a domestic violence situation, maybe even in a sexual assault or a child abuse situation, but you hear those words, "He choked me." When I was a prosecutor, those words didn't mean much to me. And if I got a case that said he choked me, I'd look at the victim's neck. If there were no visible injuries, it didn't matter to me. Today we know that when you hear "he choked me," that perpetrator, which is almost always a man, has just raised his hand and said, "I'm a killer." Those words, "he choked me," should be the biggest red flag for law enforcement officers. And if he's not already a killer, what he's telling her is that he's willing to kill her.
If a victim is strangled one time, she's 750% more likely to be killed. We now know that strangulation is the last warning shot. At least 50% of the time, victims will be strangled before they are killed.
The cop killers of America are the stranglers of domestic violence relationships. In 2017, the Training Institute on Strangulation Prevention conducted our first analysis for a whole year of law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty in the United States. And we identified 44 officers killed in intentional homicides. And our research findings, we found that 75% of the cop killers in America in 2017 were men with a history of domestic violence. And when we dug deeper in each of those cases, when we looked deeper, and sometimes we did look at criminal history records after the internet search, we found strangulation assault and strangulation assault and strangulation assault.
Strangulation is one of the most lethal forms of domestic violence. You can cause someone to pass out in seconds, and death can occur within minutes.
In strangulation cases, it's the first responder that's really going to make and break our cases. If we're going to rely on follow-up by a detective days later, we are going to fail most of the time, because we know most of our abused victims are calling us when they're at the peak of their fear. We have to be able to go on scene, look very much at this case like a DUI case. In these types of cases, when the girlfriend says, "My boyfriend strangled me," or choked me, that is our odor of alcohol. That's where we say to ourselves, I've got to ask a lot of questions. If you miss that opportunity to talk to your victim at that time at the scene, you're going to lose a major opportunity to make this case a solid case.
What officers should understand is that you can be strangled, even fatally, and have no marks. So if the officer is only looking for evidence of trauma to the face or the neck, they may miss a felony strangulation. They may even miss an attempted murder.
Strangulation is a form of asphyxia characterized by closure of the blood vessels and/or air passages of the neck as a result of external pressure on the neck.
What they should look for is evidence of marks, bruising to the neck, but remember that bruises may not show up for 24 hours. Have the victim expose their neck. Have them look in their eyes. Have them pull their lids down. Say, "Ma'am, would you mind pulling your lids down?" And look left, look right, look up, look down.
What you're seeing in this digital animation is pressure being applied to the neck. Once pressure is applied to the neck, the first impact is on the jugular veins. The jugular veins take deoxygenated blood from the brain back down to the heart. As pressure continues to be applied to the jugulars, you'll see that the carotid arteries are still pumping good blood to the brain, but nothing's coming back down again. That produces those small red spots you see in the image called petechiae. Those small hemorrhages are evidence of a anoxic brain injury and a result of increased pressure in the brain because blood is going to the brain, but it's not coming back because of the pressure of a chokehold.
Patrol officers have a form that they are to use for strangulation or what they might suspect as strangulation cases that asks a series of questions that will help us in the DA's office determine what's an appropriate charge to file.
When a victim has been strangled, she has suffered a loss of oxygen to the brain. That may make her appear different to you. She may appear to be under the influence of drugs and or alcohol. She may appear to be combative and hostile. She may appear to be uncooperative. Her story may be all jumbled up. But in reality, these are signs of loss of consciousness to the brain. She's also traumatized, so everything can be all mixed up.
So if a victim does not want to seek medical treatment there, after your investigation, I think it's really important to leave the victim with an information sheet that will describe symptoms of strangulation, current symptoms and delayed symptoms as well, so that they have a full understanding and they can refer to this.
I've talked to thousands of victims who have been strangled, and they all say the same thing. Strangulation is one of the most terrifying acts of violence they have ever experienced, and they will never forget it. They experience 4 stages. The first one is denial. They just can't believe that the person they love is actually trying to kill them. And then they go into the second phase, which is realization. They realize that this is happening. The third phase is primal, because that last breath, the thought of dying, causes them to fight for their lives. They can't fight it. And last but not least, when they realize that they can't overpower them, they can't break free, they end up going into resignation. Some of them will even give up, but it's also the brain being impacted by a lack of oxygen.
Many victims that I've worked with do not always identify strangulation immediately as a part of the assault. They may be initially focused on other issues or other things that occurred and not recognize the seriousness of the strangulation that has occurred.
We are realizing that strangulation is not only a felony, but it also may be an attempted homicide. If you see a case where ligature is used, I would consider an attempted homicide. There is no other reason to put a ligature around someone's neck unless you intend to kill them. If your case includes urination or defecation, I would consider an attempted homicide case, along with death threats, along with repeated manual strangulation and or ligature.
When you leave here and roll out onto the streets, take one thing with you. You're the difference maker. You're the person that controls what you do at that scene, how little or how much.
When you turn a domestic violence strangulation case from a misdemeanor into a felony, you're actually increasing the likelihood that she's going to stay alive. And you're increasing the likelihood that a police officer is not going to die 5 years from now at the hands of a strangler. You're actually saving people's lives by taking the time to turn a strangulation case from a misdemeanor into a felony.